Alan Chapell, welcome to Living on Music, man.
Thanks so much for having me, Steve. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here, Alan. And it's what I love doing is looking all over the guests I have and what they've done in their lives in a musical way and in other ways. And boy, what an incredible ride, sir, you have had from your early days, which we talked about, and we will go back and talk a little bit about your how you got into music and stuff. But as you said, the Palace Theater behind me in Stamford, where you grew up, and I grew up in Wilton, so we've got that Connecticut
Got that
similarity.
combo.
But I love what people have said about you and what there's, what the descriptions of you are, and just throwing a couple of those out there, and then talking to you a little bit how you think you got to there, to weave complex emotional narratives into catchy melodies. I love that as a songwriter, not just a musician, but a cultural alchemist. I love that too. And along with musical success, you've carved out your niche as an attorney. Now, right now, as life is, talk a little bit about Alan Chapell and music. I know that you have your that new the underground music show that's coming out in the summer, right?
That'll be out this summer. We're going to do the first signal will be released at the end of the month.
Oh, fantastic. Well, we'll talk about how you got to that because I think you wrote a bunch of it during the pandemic, which I think I got a sense of. And I loved hearing that because that's where musicians did good when they couldn't play live. But let's talk a little bit about the current Alan Chapell and also leading up to you in the last few years. 2016, was that when the band Chapell began?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the initial band was the creation of Jerry Harrison, I guess. I mean,
Oh,
so I got Jerry interested in some of the songs that I was writing with a bunch of friends here in New York,
right.
and
Jerry Harrison from Talking Heads, one of my favorite
yes,
bands. Oh, unbelievable.
yeah, we just chatted yesterday. He's a
Ah,
great guy, and it's just a what a monster talent. He's back out on tour too, which is just great to see. I'm very happy for him.
fantastic. And how did you end up hooking up with him to begin with?
Well, I played in a band in college back in the day, and we got to know Chris Franz and Tina Weymouth, Jerry's bandmates at Talking Heads, and
Totally.
they come to see the band play, and we sort of kept in touch over the years. And when I had put together this group of songs, I reached out to Chris and said, "Hey, do who do you think would be right to work with me on these?" And he introduced me to Jerry, and really the rest is history. Jerry brought me out to Sausalito in the Bay Area, and his studio was right across from the houseboat community. So I ended up living there. I mean, honestly, we spend 3 or 4 months a year out there still
Oh,
because I love the community out there so much. But
right.
Jerry helped me put together a band with Prairie Prince and a bunch of other folks, and that band recorded the Redhead's Allegations.
Right.
It was
Right.
my first
Yes.
album. And then I came back to New York, and I put a band together here
Right.
because most of those cats were Bay Area guys, and I'm really a New Yorker at heart. And so I brought in Ann Klein on guitar and Rodney
Right.
Howard on drums, Malcolm Gold on bass, Lorenza Ponce on violin, I should say, Grammy Award winner.
She's something that's amazing what that person has done with other people. Yeah.
Oh, Lorenza is just a monster talent and just a lot of fun to work with.
Right.
Uh, and so, the current band has now done, well, 6 other albums after Redhead's Allegations, and
Oh,
writing, a lot of recording, a lot of commiserating.
right. In 2019, right, the year before things hit, you had Penultimate. Was that an album where, there were privacy and digital media were clearly felt in the lyrics?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny how, there's some bleed over in terms of what, my different hats that I wear are. And on that album in particular, it was sort of the internet is going to eat us all album in many respects. I mean, each album ends up having its own unique voice and
Sure.
personality. I really try not to repeat myself too much, and so you try to come up with something a little bit different for each one. And
Yeah,
that one, it was really about the change to society as a result of the internet.
oh, well, there you go. I mean, that's the wonderful nature of your songwriting. You're able to do different various addresses of things. The Cinco album, was that 2020? CINCO?
Yeah, we released that in 2020, and that one was a little bit had a whole bunch of different themes in there. But because I drew from some of my days in Brooklyn, there were some stories about that. Uh,
Right.
there's just a couple of more inspirational stories, like the song "Shout," which is
Oh,
really
I love Shout, man. I listened to that like right before we clicked in together today. I'm loving Shout. That record is wonderful. On the Rooftop is great. And again, each reminiscent of New York in a different age. I love that because that shows a little, shows a little bit of your closeness to that big place that we all.
yeah. For better or worse, Steve, I can't write a simple love song. Everything has got to have a head fake. Everything has got to have some complexity. And
Right,
like I'm not even sure I'm saying that proudly. I'm just saying like
right,
that's how things come out of me, because to me the world is not always a simple place. And,
right.
and you want to try to draw stories, but for me the more interesting stories are the ones that have, multiple sides.
Yes, exactly. And you during the pandemic when it hit and it hit us all unbelievably hard in many ways. And again, I've interviewed close to 200 or 300 musicians since the beginning of it, and they all, the majority of them, Alan, as you know, and we'll talk about it here, were able to at least say, "Well, shit, I can't play live or see anybody, even my band members for the most part, but maybe my family is it." But you began writing music that for the album that's going to be released this summer, the Underground Music Show. You had albums released, Two Fishes, right, in 2022. But you had the Underground Music Show. What was the pandemic like for Alan Chapell?
Well, it was sort of a bunch of things because the good part, my daughter Rose was born
Oh,
January of 2020, at first it felt like, well, we're just going to be home, and you're kind of on lockdown anyway for the first little bit, and but then the Black Lives Matters protests were happening in New York,
right.
they were literally setting fire to stuff on my street, and it was a little bit. It just felt New York at the time became a little bit unnerving.
Yes.
And look, we're very lucky. We have the option of going out and living in the houseboat community in Sausalito, and I thought for my 4-year-old that would be a much. Well, now she's 4. She was a baby.
Right.
I thought that would be a better environment, and so we went and stayed out there for a bit. But the net of that was that my band was in New York, and now I'm back out in the Bay Area, and there's not a lot of opportunities to tour during those 2020, 21, and even in 2022.
Sure.
So I just sat and I wrote about what it's going to be like when we get to the next phase of all this, and
Right.
we can play again. And so that album is really it's definitely about being a musician during a time where you really can't be a musician, or at least you can't play out, and
Sure.
you don't realize how much you miss that when you haven't done it, till you haven't done it for a while.
Right. No, that's fascinating, and that is going to be exciting to hear. What you wrote about, and is that the band that you've had for a while? Is there anybody new? Is it a different group?
No, it's really the same core group. I had Doug Yowell on one album, and he ends up sneaking in on a track on this one for a song that I just couldn't get my head around until this group of songs for whatever reason. And so,
Right.
but other than that, it's Rodney on drums, Malcolm on bass, Ian on guitar, Lorenza on the violin, and I brought in some other musicians, but that's my core band.
Oh, I can't wait to hear that, man. That's going to be really, really fun and exciting. I had Willie Nile on. He's a buddy of mine. I've seen him numerous times in life, and he is
Oh
a,
yeah.
a core of just basic rock and roll, exuberance, and I love him. I had him on right at the pandemic, and he talked very similarly. And you might want to check it out. You might be interested in hearing somebody else too talk about walking down the empty streets of New York City and being a little bit, you know, thrown off the normality. But again, he wrote music and released records and stuff like that. So you found something with Underground Music Show. At least you were able to do something during that time. Talk a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about your legal life. When did that start, and is it continuing now as it did in the past with both?
Yeah. So, okay. So it all goes back to Kurt Cobain in some ways,
Oh,
because I was I was a member of a pretty successful band in the early '90s, and then but it was kind of a synth pop. I was a keyboard player type band.
and what band was that, Alan?
We were called All the Voices,
Nice.
and we were huge in Connecticut. That's
Oh,
all I can say. So
really?
yeah.
Oh, where did you play? And where were your most fun venues in Connecticut to play at those days?
Shenanigans was sort of our our number one spot. I think there were some places up in Hartford we'd play, and we did
Yeah,
Loeb's
yes,
place, and
yes. I went to the University of Hartford for 2 years before transferring to
okay.
for BU. So yes, Connecticut venues and things like that are fun to hear about.
Yeah. There wasn't any work in the early '90s for a keyboard player, and so I went out and joined a band in India. I lived in Bombay for a while,
Oh,
and it
that's
seemed like a really good idea at the time.
right.
And, but it was an East-West fusion band called Kalki, and I was a singer and songwriter. And so it's funny. It could not have gone worse. Every
Oh,
single thing that could have gone wrong went wrong, but it was still the most pivotal thing I've ever done in my life.
wow.
Because when I came back and sat on the couch hanging with the same group of friends that I had, hung out with for the previous 10 years or whatever it was. And I was like, you know what? This ain't going to be my life, man. And I moved to New York City with like 50 cents in my pocket,
Oh,
and still did music for another year or two, but ultimately ended up going to law school. And,
oh. Which
and
law school was it? Was it just one? Was it one in the city?
yeah, I went to Fordham. I
Oh,
went to Fordham,
yes.
and so I wasn't really sure what to study. I didn't really see myself as like a lawyer. I don't even
Right.
know what that means, but I didn't feel like that. And so, but at the same time, I started working at this new media company called Jupiter Research.
Oh,
And they did a
okay.
whole bunch of stuff on how the internet was going to change the world. And so, and those two things happened at the same time. And so I ended up taking classes that were focused on European Union competition and privacy law
Right, right.
and on human rights law. And what I found is that if you want, but back then there weren't like a lot of courses on privacy. It's big now, but it really wasn't back then. And so I took but if you're gonna learn privacy,
Right.
a really good place to start is human rights law, because
I
the
bet.
entire thing is about how do you get a large entity to do something that they are not legally required to do, and how do you push them, how do you encourage
Right.
them, how do you create levers. And so so in the privacy world, that's all you're doing. You replace United States getting them to do X, and you replace that with, like, I don't know, Google or Meta, and trying to get them to do Y. And that's
Right.
what I do for a living. And I'm blessed because I like it, and it's fun, and it pays the bills, and it allows me to do the music thing.
Oh, that's spectacular. What an interesting turn. And it's amazing how you did that. A lot of people, there are a good amount of people who want that legal feeling and get involved, but they want things like you were talking about, the human rights element and other things, and not just, I'm going to go and have a client and then boom. But I love the fact that you all, the producers of Silicon Valley, consider creating a character in your role, then you've made it. What is that
Oh
about?
yeah, so I'm sort of this unique thing, and like, and I'm fortunate. So let me just say this: my dad was born at a time where, like, he was is a bebop jazz sax player,
Oh.
but he had to hide that from his work for years and years.
Wow.
And because it's one of those things that you can kind of mention sheepishly or whatever. And I feel very fortunate because now all that stuff is kind of integrated. And so I'm
Perfect.
this sort of unique thing where, I go to clients and, and I've had calls literally as I'm about to sound check.
Right.
And we'll be doing a Zoom or whatever, and somebody will be like, wait a minute, was that Art from Everclear that just walked by? And I'm like, yeah,
Oh,
that kind of, because that's the, and it's kind of a fun little thing that most of them kind of dig.
sure.
So anyway, my plane is delayed. I think it was at SFO, and so you go to the bar because what else is there to do in an airport,
Right.
and I sat down next to a guy who turns out was one of the producers of Silicon Valley, and we just started chatting because I was like, wouldn't it be funny if those guys were like trying to get because if you remember on the show they had a big privacy issue at
Right.
some point, like a children's privacy issue. So I thought, like, wouldn't it be funny if during that type of issue they tried to get a hold of their privacy guy and he was like sound checking and in front of Everclear or something like that. And
Right.
had a couple of beers and we joked around about it we unfortunately, they went in a different direction for the show, but I thought it was kind of a fun idea and not too dissimilar to how things work now.
No, that's fascinating. I love that too. I mean, amazing run. Going back a little bit, I'd like to go back again to our home state of Connecticut together, and not far away, 30 minutes from Stamford to Wilton. Where were you born?
I was born in Milford, which is
Yeah.
where my dad is from.
Oh, really?
Very
Okay.
quickly, my mom was born and raised as was her mom in Stamford, Connecticut.
Right.
And so we ended up. I think by the time I was 3, we were living in Stamford up until for really most of my childhood.
Sure. Sure. And you were exposed to what appears, what I've looked through and what I've read, a multitude of music back then, and playing piano and trumpet before the age of 6. Who were the influences to Alan Chapell as a little boy growing up? What were the biggest musical influences you had?
Oh, it was all about the Beatles when I was 4 and 5. My first gig was in the basement of the Ferguson Library in Stamford.
Oh,
And I remember because I was really nervous about going on. Because like when you're 4, and I think 4 and a half, you don't realize that you're kind of adorable and anything that you do is going to be like well received. I didn't know that. I'm like thinking, okay, well,
sure.
and I sang Nowhere Man by the
Oh,
Beatles, or at least I sang about a third of it, and then I couldn't remember, and I said, "Well, that's all I got." And of
oh,
course, like standing ovation, and
oh.
that was misleading because I thought I thought that that's how it works, and on some level, I'm still chasing that high all these years later.
Oh no, I love that. And of course, as I told you, I've got a rehearsal tonight for a Beatles tribute I'm doing, and that music continues to grow into us. I have to I have to wonder. I mean, again, you remember them on Ed Sullivan, and we were both little. But boy, they were there, and it was unforgettable. And it became, for a lot of musicians that are older than us, it was a seminal moment when they were in their young double digits or something, and that the Beatles became. What other influence did you have? Family?
Well, my dad is a musician, and
That's
I
what you
so
said before. Yes.
I've been sitting in with his band since I was, forever. And so, I'm no jazz musician, but I have such an appreciation for the songwriting of,
Yes.
Rodgers and Hart, Cole Porter, and I mean, the brilliant, brilliant songwriters. And
Right.
then all that crazy bebop shit that my dad does, where I don't understand it, but boy, do I love it.
Oh no, that's fabulous. You're 15 and you're recording with Jimmy Einer, who is Dirty Dancing, and I just had John D. Nicola on, who wrote, Time of My Life and Hungry Eyes, and also Stacy Wiedelitz, who wrote the other song. And what was that at 15 to hook up with a guy like that? And what did that give you? And not only in a nice achievement here, but in your heart and soul and music.
I had no idea what I had. I had no idea. I remember the first meeting, and I was like, okay, Mr. Reiner, I'm really glad you're here, but I don't want you messing with my sound. And it's kind of funny because I am pretty sure that I am the only person who has ever said that to him and lived.
That
Because
is
you
cool.
don't trifle with Mr. Reiner.
Oh, I bet that is wild. But what was that like?
So, all that kidding aside, it was my first foray into the studio, and I learned a ton.
I
Like
bet.
I learned that you need to be a little bit more open-minded regarding, the thing in your head versus the thing that's getting recorded, because sometimes in the studio the thing that gets recorded is better than what you have in your head, and if you become too dogmatic
Right.
about the thing that's in your head, you miss out on the uniqueness and the gems that come out of the recording process.
Sure.
And I take that to heart. I still, to this day, it's a challenge sometimes, but I really try to embrace that.
Oh, that's fabulous. When did the songwriting begin for Alan Chappell?
Oh, I think I was 12,
Oh,
and
yes.
I think what happened was I had just been I took classical piano with a very serious person named Ogden Booker, who uh,
Wow.
who was the organist over at St. Andrews, which is right by where Bloomingdale's used to be. I think there's a UConn campus there now,
Wow.
right
Yeah.
downtown, right up. But anyway, so Ogden is a very was he passed, but he was a very serious person. And I remember one week I didn't really practice very hard, and that was atypical. I was pretty hard worker, but I was kind of messing around. And so by 2 days before my next lesson with him, I was started writing because I figured, well, I got to show him something because
Right.
otherwise he's going to hand me read me the riot act. So
Sure.
so I wrote this thing, and he's like, that's very good, Alan, but you didn't practice your lesson. I didn't get it. Yeah, so I didn't get I'd been practicing my Grammy speech, and
Right.
Alan giving it to me that day.
Well, the critique of your songwriting that I was able to find too is really, really special. Talking about remarkably delicious and easy to listen to, tantalizing, polished intensity, the melodious stew. And I love this alternately rock out gleefully and discover a little something about ourselves. So the songwriting really is something that's in here for you to this day.
It is, and there isn't a week that goes by where I don't get some idea that I've got to like sing into my phone or play around on the piano and just get a little mini recording of it. And because I'm just that's how my brain works, and I'm always trying to come up with stuff.
Oh,
I read that David Byrne would keep a list of all of his crazy lyrics, just hoping that he might have an opportunity to use them, and he really kind of kept a running thing, and I've tried to embrace that as well.
oh, I love that. And we were talking a little bit earlier about Tina and Chris, and don't they live in Westport?
I think they still do. I haven't. It's been a few years. I ran into them. Chris was DJing somewhere down in New York City, maybe 2 or 3 years ago. Was the last I saw them, and it was good because I hadn't seen Tina in years, and it was just wonderful to give her a hug and just catch up a little bit.
Yes, one of my favorite bands. I saw them on their first tour at University of Hartford at what was a Hard Rock Cafe, but it wasn't the real Hard Rock Cafe that came out. It was a small little place, and boom, blew my mind. And they ever since have been so special to me. Talking a little bit about after you did your thing with Jimmy at 15, and what were the next couple of decades for Alan Chappell as music began to grow inside you? Obviously, also as well as grabbing into the tech lawyer world.
Well, so we talked a bit about my going to India, and then coming back and living in New York City for a bit, and candidly, first couple years in law school, I didn't have a lot of time for music. I was working full time. My daughter Kylie had just been born, and I was going to law school full time.
Oh,
So there just wasn't a lot of free time.
sure.
I had a guy named Kevin Ranford who we don't talk these days much, but I'll always be grateful for having known him, because Kevin, he had a band. He's a guitar player, and he said, "Listen, man, I know you don't have any time,
Right.
so but just come to the show and sing backups. That's all you got to do. Just come sing harmonies with us." And it sort of kept me, like once every 2 or 3 months, still doing it. And it sort of and the more I did it, of course, the more I wanted to do more of it. And
Sure.
you knew it, I was a little less busy with school and some other things, and
Right.
started getting back into it again, and just started, writing, and eventually, played with a bunch of bands in here in New York City, but eventually found my way to Jerry Harrison and Sausalito, and really the rest is history, right?
The Chapell band, man, that's become one of my favorites in the last couple of weeks, listening to you. What I also loved is there was some talk about you sharing the stage with a number of wonderful rock and roll icons and bands. Some of my favorite, including 38 Special, and I interviewed Don Barnes before, and we hung out he had me for 30 minutes in the Birchmere green room after the show drinking beer. And I meet all the people I interview, and they're world famous, a lot of them.
Yeah.
Sweetheart. I love 38 Special because I'm a Southern rock fan from back when. Everclear, I just interviewed Art. How did those things come to be? Was that just the bands you were playing with and being able to go and open with and then see some of these people close up?
Yeah, I've been fortunate in that, a lot of the theaters in and around New York, haven't done the Birchmere yet, but a lot of the theaters in and around New York anyway have been really generous about, they know that we're building a following here,
Right.
and they know that my band is pretty solid, and so they've been pretty generous giving us opening gigs. And what's ended up happening with some of them is that you get to know the band a little bit, you get
Right.
to know some of their management a little bit, and little by little, I mean, I think I've done, 12, 13 shows with Gin Blossoms over the last
Oh,
couple.
and that's what I saw. One of my favorite
Yeah.
bands. I saw them up in Albany when I was just early in television, and I've loved them since day one. Yeah.
Oh, just what a great, what a really fun band. Same with Art and Everclear, just a really fun band to go check out.
Well, and the Gin Blossoms lead man, who you know of well, is now singing with the Smithereens. And along with Marshall Crenshaw, they're both sharing lead vocals with another band I loved. And I interviewed Jim Babjack, who's one of the founders, and that is really cool. Anything that jumps out at you about hanging with a bunch of those people that you remember that stood out?
No, so I've got a funny little thing with you end up getting involved a little bit in some of the hijinks, and so
Sure.
it's just silly little things, leaving stuff in each other's dressing rooms,
Perfect.
messing around. Or you watch the Gins do they do sort of a pre-show thing for for the VIPs. And
Right.
so I like just going to watch that, because that's always kind of funny, because they're decidedly like non-produced, and it's just sort of them being them. It's just kind of fun to watch. And so they'll mess with me, like I'll watch them like adjust my keyboard settings, because they know
Oh.
like at a certain, like just stuff like that, and it's kind of funny.
Oh, that's neat that you had some fun times with folks like that. That's Flock of
Yeah.
Seagulls and Lisa Loeb. I love that you're able to touch
Well,
shoulders with those folks.
Flock of Seagulls is an interesting one, because they've ended up being a little bit of bookmarks to my career, because I did a show with them in 1987,
Oh,
where my then band opened up for them at the University of Connecticut.
oh my God.
So, and I remember we thought we were so cool. We invited them back to our apartment for a keg party. And they
Oh,
came. It was kind of, I guess, because they figured like, yeah, we don't have anything else going on, and so and it's not like Storrs, Connecticut, is some huge metropolis,
no.
metropolis that you're like. But so anyway, yeah, they came back, hung with us for a little bit, chit chatted. We had the same thing with uh, uh, sugar kisses, lips like Echo and the Bunnymen.
Echo and the
Yeah,
Bunnymen.
you probably edit
Yes.
that out, but no, we brought them back. But that was also in like,
Love
I
that.
don't know, 89 ish. But anyway, I had the good fortune of playing a show with Flock of Seagulls just like a year and a half ago out in LA.
Really?
Yeah. So hence the bookmark, the bookends comment.
Well, I love that, and I'd love to get your opinion on this too. Not an opinion, but a feeling about it. But I've been a music fan for 50 years in my life too, just since the beginning in Connecticut. I was born in '61, and I've just loved it music from the minute my parents started playing everything from Neil Diamond to the Beatles to everything. And you grow through this entire thing, and now that we're older, we're seeing bands continue, and a lot of them are continuing strong. I just saw John Mellencamp last week at the DIR Constitution Hall, and he was fabulous. Sounded good. It was solid. Ann Wilson sounds a little strained right now as his heart is rebuilding. So it's amazing how the different musicians are getting back. But isn't it exciting to see some of these folks continue to keep going?
Oh yeah, I saw Mellencamp up in Harlem maybe 5, 6 years ago, and it just
Oh,
blew me away. Yeah, they're just
oh,
wonderful.
yeah, it's wonderful to see a lot of these folks going, and we're also losing a lot of them because look at the Stones, they're touring again in their 80s, and I don't did you hear that they played the New Orleans Jazz Festival the other night, and they were done at midnight, and Ronnie Wood didn't go back and go to sleep at 79. He went to the Preservation Hall and jammed guitar with the band in there, and there's some great video that I posted about it that I love seeing, and Ronnie's a good guy. I met him years ago.
Yeah, that's good to see. That's what but that's what these guys live for. They just want to play music. And it just so happens that he ended up in this famous band because had he
Oh,
not, and not that he didn't deserve to be, but had he not, he'd be doing the same thing.
exactly. You're dead on that one. We can wrap up, but I wanted to talk really quickly about we talked about your songwriting. You have a tremendous amount of songs. I've listened to a bunch recently and loved a lot of them. Do a couple stand out to you that really feel like Alan Chapell? I know you're going back and forth in a lot of music and changing different subjects in the albums. Are there some songs that really make you proud of what you've done and yourself and the people you play with?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for me, before you break off of Two Fishes,
Okay.
I just feel like that's a very honest song, and it's not like my others aren't honest, but that's one where it was really I was talking to somebody,
Right.
and so that one sort of
Right.
stands out for me.
I don't know what you've been told. I think you got some bad advice. You walk right in, you talk like that. I see you sliding through the eyes. You hitched a ride on a one-way train. For that you paid the price. Welcome to the breakdown tonight. Just don't you forget the other side. I heard that you were back to school. You're living on your own. A broken heart from a broken home. Did you learn to let it go? I've been waiting, you've been running. That ain't no way to grow. You ain't got time to know what's going on. 'Cause you won't let it show. You don't belong. May talk like that, look like that. It ain't that back when you wanna
The way you want it, which is one that I don't think has gotten a ton of play. It was on the Love in the Summer of Trouble album. But that one I really liked. I liked that for a couple of reasons. I had at the time a woman named Ali Kulata playing keys, and
Oh,
I just loved her solo in it. And I
wow.
had Sharif Clayton on the trumpet, and Sharif and I go back like 20 years. He's a monster talent on the trumpet, but he
Wow.
was doing kind of like a quasi jazz vibe solo thing in the middle. And man, like it's hard to like get halfway through that song and not look around to see if you could just roll something and start smoking it, because it just kind of has that feel.
How many days you've been pretending? How many times you lose your way? How many nights you're stuck in Mobile with the Memphis blues again? Why do you wait till she walks by you? Why do you let your heart say no? How many times you gonna play those silly love songs on the radio? Pretending. How many times you lose your way? How many nights you stuck in Mobile with the Memphis blues again? It only goes where it's given. It will not find what is hidden. Drinks like wine. She knows that love ain't blind. Because maybe the way you want it is the way you got it. You got it. And now maybe the way you want it is the way you got it. You got it.
Look, the Underground Music Show this summer coming out. Sounds like the music world of Alan Chapell is continuing to roll on. Do you feel good about where you are? And then what else is coming after Underground Music Show in the next couple of years?
So it's a great question. I've got another dozen or so songs that I've sort of written
I
that I
bet.
haven't presented to the band yet. And because I'm trying to figure out like what's the next thing. Because part of me thinks, like, do I want to just focus on like, let's get 20 of my songs and maybe revisit them, do something a little bit different, change up the instrumentation a little bit,
Right.
and try to just go with those for a while and like
Sure.
really, really try to create a vibe? Or do I want to keep throwing in new songs? And it'll probably end up being a little bit of both. But right
Right.
now, what I'm vibing off of is the idea of like recreating some things from the back catalog a little bit.
Right.
Because one of the things, if you're doing an album a year, there's a lot of stuff that I think gets lost because as you're marching towards the recording process. And
Sure.
so there's part of me that thinks I want to revisit some of that stuff.
Yeah, that's definitely something that very talented songwriters and musicians do, is they go back and they do some kind of revising and playing with stuff, and that sounds like a really fun thing. Do you have any live music plans going on in the next few months?
We've got a couple of things in the works that we're not quite ready to announce. Unfortunately, I was hoping I'd be able to,
Okay.
but we should be able to soon. You're going to hear a lot more of my music in the next couple of months.
I can't wait. Well, as we keep in touch, I'll definitely tell people about what you're doing. And also, if you're touring around or you want to come to the Birchmere, I know those guys like the back of my hand. In fact, we just lost Gary Olsey, who was the greatest owner of it for 40 years, and I've interviewed him, and they just had a book called All Roads Lead to the Birchmere, and we had just done an interview about 6 months prior, and he passed. But I just went there the other night and saw Steep Canyon Rangers. We're going to see the Wallflowers and Steve Earle this month. I mean, the place continues to go. They got hit right in the from the pandemic, but they were able to keep it going. But I would love to see you there. And I think you would love that place.
Oh, I would love to play there. I think we'd have a lot of fun. So,
I do too. Well, we're going to keep in close touch. Good luck with the Underground Music Show coming out. I love what you're doing. I'm going to keep playing Alan Chapell going forward because I love the stuff, and I think you should be really proud of where you're going and what you're doing. And again, also with your two lovely children.
Well, thanks so much, Steve. It was great chatting with you, man.
Thanks, man. Thanks for being on Living on Music. We'll be in touch.
Take care.